So hi guys. So in this video we are going to implement when the player loses, how the player loses the game. So basically the player starts with 3 lives, and when the lives reach 0, it's game over. And the way that the player can lose a single life is when it gets hit by an invader missile, or when the invaders reach one of the bottom lines in the game. I don't know exactly what is the correct height. I mean, at which point the invaders actually win the game. I mean, the player loses the game. But we are going to do something like when the invaders reach below the bunkers, or maybe when the invaders reach a point where they would be actually touching the player. We won't actually implement the collision between the invaders and the player, but we can just see, okay, if any invader reaches that position, then the player loses 1 life. And so when the player loses all 3 lives, it's game over and it's done. First thing we are going to do is to import the sprites to indicate the number of lives in the player. And you can see that I have it right here on the top right corner of the screen. We have these 3 with the like 3 sprites indicating the number of lives that the player has, and when the player is losing lives, these will be disappearing and the number will also change. Now, to be honest, I got really lazy when I was doing this, and the correct way would be to just import to have these sprites with using the sprite that we already have, or maybe duplicating the other one with just 0, 1, or maybe 1, 2, and 3, because we don't need the 0, and using just another sprite for the player, instantiating this, and then doing the cloning the sprites and positioning the sprites on the correct place and everything. But like I said, I got really lazy at this point, and so I just went with an easier version, which was just creating the 3 different sprites for the number of lives that the player can have. Because it's only 3, so we have 3 different sprites here. And these are the ones that we are going to import. So let's start by importing those sprites. Upload sprite, let me see, Space Invaders, sprites. Okay, I have it here, so lives. Okay, well, I'm going to import first the lives number 3, and then I'm going to import the other ones, because we are always going to start with the number 3. So it makes more sense in this way. Or maybe not, because we can use, let me think, I'm saying this makes more sense, but in a way we are going to create a variable for the number of lives of the player. So, and if we have a variable like, okay, the number of lives is 3 to 1, then we can relate the sprite directly with it. So maybe we won't be, okay, I'll just import this one and change the order. So lives, okay, and now costumes, I'm going to import the other ones and maybe change the order, and we'll see. So this one and the other one. Okay, and maybe we're going to put number 1, number 2, and number 3. Only because, despite this being the default one, and we are going to do it by code, so it's not, we don't need to worry to be the first one. So in this one we have like the wife number 1 is the number 1 sprite, wife number 2 is the number 2, and number 3 number 3. So in this way we can use the actual value that we are going to have on the player wife variable that we are going to create to just change the costume, and the costume is going to be the same as the player wife. So it makes more sense in a way. So this is it, and now we are going to scale down the sprites just like we did with the other ones. All the sprites that had text, I ended up exporting them with double the resolution, and then scaling down inside the Scratch. And now we are going to position it on the correct place. Let me see. So this is 88, 44, 44, so 48, 180 minus 48, basically. So 132, if I'm not mistaken. Wait, let me get here, this one. Oh, 132. Not here. Oh, no, not 180, sorry. It's 240. Yeah, I was like, okay, 132 doesn't make sense. It's 240. 240 minus 48. Yes. 240 minus 48. Yeah, makes sense. So 192. So 192. Yes. Okay. Now it's correct. And now we have 20 of height. So it's 10. 180 minus 10 minus 70. 170 minus 4. 166. And the height is going to be 166. And this is it. Yeah. And okay. So that's okay. Now we can hide this sprite and just we are going to add it because we are all not this one. We are only showing this kind of sprites when the game actually starts. So after we create the invaders and the bunker, so we are not using the green flag. But in this case, we can use the green flag to just make sure that the sprite is hidden. So we can use the green flag to hide the sprite. And also, let me just put this. So if we drag the sprite for any reason, we just make sure that it goes to the correct position. So we don't have to do this calculation all over again. And when we receive the start message, we are going to switch the costume to, in this case, the last one, which is life number 3. And we are going to show the sprite. Okay, so this is the beginning. Oh, I'm going to mute this. And yes, we have the sprite correctly. Okay. Now that we have the sprite, we can deal with the player score and then just update the sprite according to the score. So, not the score, sorry, the player lives. So now what we need is to create a variable to hold the value of the player life that will start always at 3, and then we're going to decrease that variable until it reaches 0. When it reaches 0, it's game over. So let's create a variable, make a variable, let's call it player life, and it's for all sprites, no doubt about this one. And okay, player lives. Since it is a variable about the player and about the game, I mean, one difficulty that I have with Scratch is to know where to put sometimes these kind of game variables, like the score and the player lives and stuff like that doesn't actually belong to anyone. And I always see it like this, not only in Scratch, but other engines. You have like these entities, and they have like properties and behavior. So we have the player, we have the invader, the mystery ship, and they have variables that are related to them. And usually on other engines, you end up having like a game manager that will deal with the game stuff. I mean, when I say game stuff, it's the score, the number of lives, and all these conditions. And in Scratch, we don't actually have a way to have like a game manager. The only way we can create a game manager is creating maybe an empty sprite that it's like a placeholder that we can't see on the screen, but that we can add behaviors to it, which makes some sense. I'm not using it at this in this project, but it makes some sense to me. But creating an empty sprite is something that I don't know. It seems a little bit weird. So I don't know what's the best course of action. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm using the player as the game manager in a way. So the player will be the one where the game starts, because you need someone to say, start the game. You need someone to say, okay, I'm going to set up the game, prepare the whole game, and then I'm going to start. And when the game ends, I'm going to reset the game. So this is the job for the game manager, usually. But in this case, I didn't create a game manager. I'm not going to try it now. So maybe you'll use the player as the game manager, because I mean the player is essential and maybe it's like the main entity that we have in our game. So it makes some sense. And since the score is related to the player score and the lives are the player lives, I don't know, we can go with it. So all this to say that we are going to set the player life to 3 when the game starts, and the game starts once again on the player. So we are going to use the player once again as the entry point for our game. And the entry point, this is another concept even in programming, is where the program starts. So when you are programming, you have like this whole sequence of instructions, just like we have here. I mean, here the blocks represent those instructions. And every program has an entry point. And when I say an entry point, is the point, I mean the first instruction where that the program starts executing, and all the rest of the program starts from that. And just to say that usually it's in the game manager that we have that entry point, and all the entire game starts from the game manager. In this case, we'll use the player and let's see how it goes. So we set player wife to 3, score to 0, and yes, this is it. Another thing that we can do here, now that I'm thinking about it, is that we are switching the costume to wife number 3 here, and we are setting the player wife to here. What we could do, and this is just thinking like further ahead, if we wanted to change the wife, let's suppose that tomorrow we decide that the player, instead of having like 3 wives, is going to have 5. A better way to do this would be to, set the player wife to 3 here, and then send a message to the update to the wife that we are going to create. We're going to need a message called like update wives to say, okay, we changed the number of the player wife, so you need to update the sprite. And a better way would be to set the player wife here to 3 and then call that message. And in a way, we didn't have like wife 3 here like a static value. It would just use the value that was on the player wife, the one that we set at the beginning. This would be the best approach to this kind of problem, but since if we want to make the change, we'll also need to add new sprites to have like different number of lives, and probably we wouldn't be using the 3 different sprites. We would be using like the one cloning the sprites and everything. So it's not a big of a deal, but in a way, a better approach would be to do something like that. This is only so that you guys can think that right now you have 2 values that are connected. So the initial player wives, it's a value that it's being used on 2 different places. And if you change on one place, you always need to remember to change on the other one. So the best way to do this is always to have change the value on one place and tell the other, okay, I change it, so do whatever you need to do with it. But we are not going to do it. This is just something that, that would be a better approach. In this kind of implementation, it's not a big of a deal. So yeah. So we set the player wife to 3. That's okay. And now we need to decrease the player wife. Like I was saying, the player will lose a life when he gets hit by a missile from the invaders, or when the invaders reach that bottom line on the game screen. So first, let's just implement the collision with the missile. We don't have it yet, but we already know how to do it. We've done it a few times so far. So when we receive the start method, we start a forever block, and inside the forever block, we are going to see if the player is touching a missile. Okay, so we are always checking for this collision, and when the collision happens, we destroy the player. And right now, let's just do something like change player life by -1. So we decrease the player life, and we can also just right now update the sprite of the wife. So the wife don't know when this happens, so we need to send a message to tell, okay, we changed the player wife, so now switch the costume to the player wife value. And so here we can just broadcast, and we create a new message. Let's call it update wife. I'm gonna broadcast the update wife, and on this sprite we are going to add this one. So when we receive the update wife message, we are going to switch the costume. We don't need this one. We are going to switch the costume to the player wife variable. And this is why I talked before about the costumes being with the same number of the number of wives, so that we can easily just say, okay, switch the costume to the value of the player wife. If we were doing the other way around, 3 to 1 instead of 1 to 3, we need to have some math here. Really simple, but we need to add a few more blocks to switch the costume. And okay, so let's just see if this is working. I'm going to try to get hit by a missile. Okay, yeah, we lost the wife. You can see that it updated the sprite, but nothing happened to the player. We are going to deal with that now. And so the player is touching the missile, we are changing the wives and broadcasting the update wives message. And now we need to create an animation for the player to explode the player. we already have the sprites here. So we have the default one, which is the one we've been using so far. And now we have these two ones. And the animation of the explosion of the player, it's something that just cycles through these two sprites. And since we only have two sprites, we cannot cycle just once. We're going to need to cycle a few times. But so let's see here. So we change this, we broadcast, and then if we are going to change the costumes, we can change costume to explosion number 1 and explosion number 2. You already know that when we are creating animations, we need to add a few seconds in between changing the costume so that we can see it actually happening. And like I was saying, we are going to repeat this a few times, because if we only do this one time, it's really fast and we can't see it. So we are going to repeat all this, maybe like, I don't know, 4 times. Let's see what we have. So we repeat this 4 times, so the player loses 1 life, and we switch the costume to player explosion number 1, we wait, switch to the other one, repeat this a few times, so we have like an animation of the player exploding. And let's see if it's working. Now you can see that we already changed the costume of the player because we left this one selected. But this remember me that if we are doing this, maybe it's also a good practice to just switch the costume to the player, always at the beginning. It's just like one of those things that you need to always reset at the beginning. And actually, let me put this the other way around. I prefer to have the hide first because I don't want to see any of these changes happening when we start the game. And so let's try it again. I try to get hit by a missile. Okay. Okay, and now you can see that we have a small animation. We have 2 animations so far. You see. Now we have this problem, but we are going to solve it. You see that we have this animation, but you see that we have a problem that despite the player being shot and lost a life and it's destroyed, we can still control the player, and that's because while we are running this, all this continues to run. So we need to stop all these other blocks when the player is being destroyed. And we have a block for that here in the control section. Yep. And we have other scripts in the sprite. Please make sure that if you stop all, it means that it's going to end. It's going to stop the entire game. So the game is just like stop all, just like pressing the stop button. Then you have stop this script, which means it's going to stop everything on the block that you are running, and you can see that you cannot connect anything afterwards. So it's just like the end block of one of these sequence of blocks. But if you use other scripts in Sprite, you can stop other scripts. So basically, it's going to basically it's going to stop all the other loops that are currently running, and you can keep doing stuff on the block that you are using. So here we are going to stop scripts in Sprite, and then we do all the other things. So as soon as we stop the script in Sprite, we can no longer move the player or shoot from the player, and then we do the animation, and this is it. Now what we need to do after we do all this is that we are going to reset the game. So we destroy the player loses 1 life, and we reset everything back to the beginning. So now let's deal with resetting the game after destroying the player. Oh, another thing we can do here, another thing that we can do here before that is just ending the game when the number of lives reaches 0, because we know it's game over. And so we can do something like, okay, we do this, we change the player life, we update the lives on the top. Actually, we are not going to update the lives on the top only if the player didn't lose the game. So we can update after the animation runs. It's not a problem. And we can add here at the bottom of this one, after the animation, we can say that if the player lives are equal to 0, means the player lost the game, so we stop everything and the game just stops. Otherwise, we're gonna broadcast to update live, and we are going to reset the game. And now we are going to deal with resetting the game. And to reset the game, basically, we are going to need to create a new message because we need to warn everyone that we need to reset the game. We need to tell the invaders and the missiles and the mystery ship and not the score. Actually, the score stays the same. But now we are going to reset the score. We are going to destroy the score and start again from the beginning. And we are not going to reset it's the actual value of the score. But we'll get there in just a bit. So we are going to reset everything to the beginning. And we need to reset the lasers and the missiles because if they are already on screen, we need to tell them just to destroy themselves because the game is resetting. So let's create a new a new message called reset. And this is the message that we are going to use so we update live and call the reset. And we'll see if we need to call reset or broadcast and wait, but I think we are good with this one. And now that we have this one, okay, the first one that we can make to receive this message is the actual player. And now I'm thinking that in a way we could just add the code to reset inside this block, but we are going to do the player, despite being the player calling or broadcasting this message, we are going to also make the player listen to the very own message and do the resetting, so we can know that, okay, this is the block where we are resetting the player. We don't need to be like looking around this entire block to see where is the reset code. So when the player receives the reset message, we need to reset the player, and resetting the player, basically it consists in what we have here at the beginning, but not running these, setting these variables. So we can duplicate this, and we are going to switch the costume to player again. We are going to position the player on the correct location, and then we're going to start the game again, but we'll start that in just a bit. So this is resetting the player. And now you can see that we are duplicating here the blocks. So we could also do something like only have the variables here and call the reset from after changing the variable. So we only run this when we press the green flag, and then we'll call the reset and we'll do something like this. Which probably makes sense because we are going to, after resetting the game, we are going to start the game maybe from here. So yes, let's do something like that, because in this way we are not like repeating this code because we don't need to. And here we can call the reset game. Let's see how this plays out. So let me see. Let's try to run just to see what happens. Okay. So all good so far, and yeah, I'm not gonna try to lose a life now. Let's just implement the other reset, all the other resets that we need, and then we'll come back here and we'll try it out. So the invaders, when we reset the invaders, so we need to add when I receive the reset message, and when we receive the reset message, basically what we are going to do is just deleting this clone, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's just deleting this clone. Yes, but then we also need to do something else, because if you only delete the clones, now that I was thinking, because now we have that problem of having like the, not the problem, but what we need to think about that, having the original sprite and the clones. What we also need to do here is that because we have the original sprite here running all this, and it's running the sound, if we only delete the clone, then the sound will keep playing, and we don't want that. So we need to, besides deleting the clone, we need to stop other scripts in the sprite. So it's going to stop the other loop that is running the sound, and afterward it's going to delete this clone. And this is really strange for me, for example, because the original sprite is also going to receive this message, and we are saying to the original sprite to delete this clone, which won't run on the original sprite because it is not a clone. So I don't know, maybe we should have, like when I receive, we should have a block for when I receive as a clone or when I receive as a sprite, that would be really good to have something like that, but it's just a thought. So when I receive the reset, we stop other scripts in the sprite and we delete the clone. This is what we are going to do about the invaders. Now, about the lasers, and let's do something like, I never used his so far, the backpack, but the backpack is really cool because you can just copy some script here, and it gets in your backpack, and then you can just drag here to other sprites. You can also drag directly to a sprite, but in this way, if you want to drag it or copy that block to more than one sprite, then this is the best way to do it. Just put it on a backpack, and then you have that block there, and you can just go to all the other sprites where you need to use it and just drag it to the code of that sprite. And here, so the laser, we are going to delete the clone. Yeah, I don't know if you actually need to stop the scripts in the sprite, but we can leave it. It's just going to stop this loop right here. Not a problem. We can also drag it here. So the missile also as well. Basically, we need to destroy everything that's on screen, and then we are going to instantiate everything from the beginning. The bunkers as well, we are going to delete the bunkers, so we are going to implement the bunkers all from the beginning. If the mystery ship is also on screen, we are going to delete it. Yeah, I'm just dragging these everywhere, and I'm hoping that it will work okay. Let's see. And this one, we don't need to do anything. This is just a label. Maybe we could hide it. I don't know. Let's see how it works. And the score, yeah, we are going to also delete the score and start again from the beginning. I don't know if we actually need to delete it. Only if we want to disable the score, like hide the score when we are resetting the game. No, maybe we are not going to add to the score. Let's see. And okay, so I think I added everywhere that I needed to. So let's start the game. And now I'm doing something. What am I doing? When I receive reset. This is because I'm receiving reset, and the invaders are also calling the green flag and afterwards are receiving the reset. So they are like instantiating stuff and then receiving this and deleting everything. So okay, let's just change this and maybe we'll come back to this in just a bit. So I'm gonna duplicate this now and let's start. Okay, I'm gonna try to catch a missile here. And yes, okay, it resetted everything, basically. We lost one life, the score stays the same. Okay, we didn't have any score, and the player starts here. Okay, but the player, we need to hide the player also, because the player will only show the player again after we receive the start method. Okay, let's see. I need to find a better way instead of just waiting for missiles, but yeah. Okay, now it's okay, and now we need to do everything from the beginning. I mean, instantiating everything again. And to do that, we already have like the start method that is run. We have this one that is run after we create the invaders. So right now, the invaders are also doing stuff when the game starts. And we no longer want that. We want to have, like I said, we want to have like an entry point. I mean, a single place where all the code begins. So that when we are resetting and doing everything, we know that, okay, this is where the code begins. This is where I set the initial state of the game. So we know that it's not like all around the place. We saw that the problem that we had before when I was calling reset from the player, but because this is also starting at the beginning. So we were creating the invaders and destroying them afterwards. So it doesn't work very good in that way. So maybe what we need now is another event. And we also I think we are also doing the bunkers with the green flag. Yes. So we need to take all these green flags and create another event so that we can create all the stuff that we need. So when we reset the game or when we start the game, we are going to broadcast a message like, okay, create. And create, it means that we are going to instantiate all the invaders and all the bunkers. And when that is done, then we are going to call the the start method that we already have, that we are calling at the end of instantiating the invader. So we are going to call the start message, and that's it. We are going to do that at the beginning of the game and when we reset the game. So let's try it. So the first thing that we are going to do is when I receive reset, okay, we are going to create a new message. Actually, we are going to broadcast a new message. And in this case, we are going to broadcast and wait, because after calling the reset, not the reset, sorry, we are going to call a new message called create. Yeah, we could call like create game, reset game, start game, but okay, we don't have the game afterwards, so we know that it's create game, reset game, and start game. But it would be better to have the game at the end of the message, but I think we can't rename it. No, we don't have a way to rename it, I don't know. This is another thing that Scratch could also have. Just like we have the variables here, we could have a similar thing with the messages here, so that we could rename them, or I don't know, replace the messages, something like that. And broadcast create and wait. Maybe we can do that here. And then after we broadcast the create and wait, we are going to broadcast the start method. And why are we broadcasting create and wait? Because we are going to broadcast create to all the sprites are going to get this message. We are going to wait for them to finish. So all the invaders are going to be instantiated and all the bunkers. Now I'm not sure how it works. To be honest, I'm not sure how it works when we broadcast create and wait and we have two different sprites receiving that message. I'm not exactly sure if it waits for both sprites to end running the blocks under that message, but it makes some sense. So I'm hoping that it works like that. And then when it's all good, we start the game. And then we have this start here and everything. And probably after we do this, we can take this from here and just call reset. Let's see. And now before that, we need to change this. So this is not going to happen when we click the green flag. It's going to happen when we receive the create method. So when we receive the create method, we hide the original sprite. We do all this. Blah, 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 blah. This no longer is broadcasting the start message. And maybe we can have this here, because if it is a forever, I think it won't work with the waiting on the other side. So I'm just going to take this out from here, and we are going to start playing the sound actually when we receive the start method. So when I say method is message, sorry, method is from what we use on programming languages. So this is a message is a sort of a method. But yeah, when I say method, I'm talking about the messages. So when we receive the start, we also start the sound. And when they receive the create, it's going to create all the invaders. Yes. And the bunkers, we are going to do the same. So it's not on the green flag, it's when the bunkers receive the create message. It's going to do everything. And let's see. Let's see how it goes. And it doesn't go right now. Why? Because we are not doing this. So now we are going to take this from here, and we are going to no. We are going to call the reset from here. Okay. Yes, created everything. We have the score. Now I'm going to try to get hit by a missile. Yep, here. And starts again from the beginning. And yeah. Oh, and the score resetted, and also no, that's not correct. The score resetted and also the life. Okay, I need to change that. Let me see. Okay, I destroyed the player, the score, the lives, everything gets okay. So we are probably resetting the score and the player lives where we shouldn't. Yeah, but the player lives are here, so that's okay. Broadcast a reset. Let me see. Oh, the score is here. Blah, blah, blah. Now, where are we setting the score? It's here. Set score to 0. Why is score coming back to 0? Maybe it's not the value, but it's this one. So when I receive start. Oh yeah, when I receive the start. So they are actually, we need to probably destroy the digits. We are just instantiating digits on top of the other ones. So let's just use this script from the backpack here, and that we can destroy the digits as well. So I think in this way it will solve that. And here we also have a problem, which is this one. When I receive the start, we are switching the costumes to Y3. And here we are going to fix this by actually changing the costume to player lives. So we don't have a problem with that. When we receive start, yes, we don't have a problem because we are setting the player lives here on the green flag and the start only comes afterwards. So it should be okay. Okay, let me see. Let me get some score. We still have a problem with destroying the invaders. I need to actually check that. Okay, I was able to destroy myself. We lost some lives. And the score, we resetted the score. Why? Why are we resetting the score? Let me see here. We have a score like 80. We are still resetting the score. Why is that? Because we have the set score here to 0. It's probably something to do with this one. Oh, switch costume to 0. Yeah, that's a problem. When we start as a clone, we are doing this. When we start, we are generating all the other ones. When they start as a clone, we are switching costume to 0, and we don't want that. So maybe what we need to do, okay, we can do this, but after creating all this, what we are going to do is actually call the update score message from here. So what it does is that it creates all the digits with the 0, and then since we didn't change the variable value of the update score value, we are going to broadcast the update score so it actually puts the digits with the correct numbers. Let's see. Let me get some score. Okay. Okay. Reset everything, and we have the score, and we can keep going. Yep, this is it. And we are losing the lives. Okay, let me see if I lose everything, if the game stops. That's the only thing that we didn't test yet. So we only have 1 life now. We have our score and everything. Oh, let me see. We still have like a missile. Okay, we can't have that missile there. So the game stopped. But let me see why the missile was still alive. Because we cannot call the reset. Because the reset is also going to call this. Okay, we're going to leave it like that. Because we are stopping. Basically what's happening is that we are stopping everything. I mean, we could call like an end. We could create a new message and call like an end. But if the game stops, and we are in the editor, so I'm going to see if in the real page of the game when we are running, if when we call the stop, if it actually stops the entire game and we don't see anything else, or what happens. Because since we are in the editor, maybe we are still seeing the missiles and everything. But if in the project page, I mean, we can test it right now. I'm just talking, but let me see. Project page, okay. Okay, this is really strange. We cannot have this like this, but yeah. Let me see. Okay, now I'm able to shoot. Yes. Some score. Okay, now here. Okay, 2 lives. Start again from the beginning. Okay. It didn't work. I don't know if I destroyed the missile early or not, but I need to go quick, otherwise the spacebar doesn't work. Let me try to catch this one. Yeah, this is the opposite of the of the game. I'm just trying to catch the missile now. So, oh, here comes another one. Okay, let me see. Yeah, okay, it goes back to the beginning. We only need to make sure that the state where we leave the project, it can't be like this. So we need to hide this one and hide this one and hide this one. And so when we go to the this is just like when we just we finish the project or we want to share with others, we need to make sure that the initial state is the correct one. So in this case, the project page is all empty and then it creates everything. Yeah. Okay. So this is it about the player lives and losing the game. And on the next video, we are going to see about winning the game. Oh no, sorry. Actually, no. We are still missing the. Sorry. We are still missing losing the game when the invaders reach the bottom of the screen. Yeah, I forgot about that. So we need to add that, and it's really simple. Basically, what we need to do is here in the invaders, we need to keep checking the invader's position, and when the position reaches a certain value, we are just going to end the game. And now that's a good question, because when we are ending the game, okay, let me see. Let me see, because it's easy, but we may have some problems with these methods that we are using, the reset one and the start one and all that. So let me see. First of all, we are going to add a new block here. So when I start as a clone, because we need to check this for all invaders. I mean, this is the first invader reaching the bottom that will end the game. So when I start as a clone, and we could do, once again, we could do a forever block with an if to compare the position, but we have another block which is great for this case, which is wait until. And this is a cool block, because basically what this does is running a loop. That's not running a loop. I mean, it's waiting on this block until the condition that afterwards becomes true. And as soon as the condition becomes true, then it continues with what's beneath. So what we are doing here is that we are going to wait for the invaders to reach a certain position, and when they reach that position, we end the game. So we are going wait until, and now we need to compare the position of the invader. So when the position, the y position is less than, now let me see here what we are going to do. We have 180 minus 180. The player starts, no, not here, maybe here. The player starts in 158 minus 158. So minus 158 is going to be the center of the player, right? So maybe the invaders will start touching the player, not when they reach 158, but when they reach 148, because it says it means that the center of the invader is here, and we have the middle. I mean, we have like half of the invader already on top of the player. So when the invaders reach minus 148, and we can go back here. So when we're gonna wait until the position is less than minus 148, and when the position is less than minus 148, we are going to end the game. Not end the game, but destroy the player. And this is, now that we are going to destroy the player, we need a new message, because we need to tell the player that, okay, you just lost a life, and we don't have a way to see that right now, because we are doing all that code inside this one here. Okay, so I need to create a new message. I think it's the best way. So I'm always like a little bit afraid of creating new messages, because then you start having like a lot of messages going around between the entities. It can get a little bit tricky to just manage all those messages and to understand what's really happening. But in this case, I think it makes sense. So let's create a new message saying destroy player. Yeah, destroy player. Basically, it's what we are going to do. Destroy player. So we broadcast the destroy player, and now we need to change the player to receive that message. So when it receives destroy player, and now we need to do all this that's inside here. So we are going to do this and call the message from within the player itself. Let's see. I'm not very convinced, I know. Let's see. Oh, let's see, but if this is still working, yeah, this is still working, so not a problem. And so that we can test this, we are not going to use minus 148, just remember this value. We are going to use, like, if they move one row, if they shift one row down, because they start at minus 7. So let's say if the y position is less than, they are 20, or they have a height of 20, so minus 17. But we are not, I think we are changing half of it, minus 20, whatever. Minus 20 should do it. So we just need to wait for the invaders to reach one of the edges and shift down one time, I think. No. minus 20, maybe it was too much. I don't remember how much we are shifting down the invaders. Oh, this was a missile or? Okay, sorry, no. Okay, I'm just gonna protect the player here. Okay, yeah, player is destroyed, and oh, it was two lives maybe. Let me try again. I'm gonna do it minus 15. Minus 15 is still maybe not working. Minus 10, whatever. Let me see. Yes, destroy the player and resetted the game, lost a life, and it's all good. Yep. And here, so minus 148. And now, yeah, now this is it. Now I showed you guys how to lose the game, how we lose the game. And on the next video, we are going to see how to implement when the player wins the game. And basically, the player wins the game when he's able to destroy all the invaders. And the original game, after he destroys all the invaders, it starts again from the beginning. It doesn't lose a life, but it starts again from the beginning. And also, what happens is that the invaders start one row down. I didn't try to do it on my original project when I implemented it the first time, but we'll see if we also can do that. I think it will be cool. And this is it. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.